Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is Bookmas Day 2 if everything is on schedule and going according to plan. When you're watching this, it's December 2nd, which is absolutely crazy to say, and I feel like I say this in every wrap-up video, but I just genuinely cannot believe that November is over and we're finally into the holiday season. I'm excited, but also I just think it's crazy that this year is almost over. Anyways, the start of a new month obviously means we have to do a reading wrap-up. I'm actually kind of shocked with how many books I read last month. I read a total of 6 books, which isn't a lot to some people, but for me, it is quite a bit, especially since we had the holidays. I'm a full-time student going into finals, and I also work part-time. So kind of a crazy month, but also a very good reading month for me. Anyways, enough yapping. Let's just get into the books that I read in November. Starting off the month, I read my book club's book pick. It was actually my pick for the book club, and that is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. If you're on Book Talk, you have seen or heard of this book. Everyone I follow has been really raving about this book, so that is why I picked it for the pick of the month for our book club. I also thought it was gonna give fall vibes, so that's kind of why I picked it, but it is kind of more of a summery vibe book, so keep that in mind because I did not know that it was not a fall book going into it. Anyways, in this book, we follow Clementine, our female main character, as she navigates her life and grief of her late aunt. Her aunt has actually left her this amazing apartment in the heart of New York for Clementine after she had passed. And Clementine, when she goes into this apartment one day, she is automatically transported back 7 years into the past and is met with a stranger in her apartment. But 7 years in the past, there's actually this man who is subletting the aunt's apartment from her while she is away from vacation. But obviously, Clementine does not know that, and she is freaked out that this stranger thinks that he owns this apartment at the same time she does. And then when she leaves said apartment, she is immediately put back into the present. And when she goes back, she finds that this mystery man is no longer there. And so we kind of just follow Clementine on her path to navigating life, grief, and this weird stranger in her apartment. I did not enjoy this book as much as I thought I was going to. I gave it 3.5 stars, so I did enjoy it a good amount. To me, it was just a little bit insta-lovey, so not my favorite. I'm also just not sure I love the magical realism aspect of it. I'm not a big time girly, like I don't know how to explain that. Like I don't like historical fiction or like historical romances. I don't really like Groundhog's Day that much. And so this one just kind of fell flat for me. The whole time I was just thinking that's not realistic, and I couldn't be transported into like that fantasy feeling of this romance. So I think that's kind of why I didn't like it as much. Of course, it was beautifully written. The romance and the banter was great, but for me, that insta-lovey little bit kind of just pushed it over the edge for me and made it a little bit less special. I love a slow burn, and so I feel like them loving each other right away kind of got rid of like the magical aspect of it for me. Next, I read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Lori Gilmore, and let me just say that this book is almost a exact copycat of Gilmore Girls. In it, we follow Jeannie, who has been given her aunt's cafe, the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, in this super small town because the aunt is done running it and wants to travel the world. And Jeannie kind of takes it as this sign to leave her 9-to-5 that she feels like kind of stuck in and kind of worried that she'll never be able to get out of, and packs up her life and goes to this small town to run her aunt's cafe. She quickly realizes that while she's there, that someone is trying to get rid of her. She keeps hearing these sounds while she's sleeping, and it is making her super nervous. She thinks that someone just wants her to go back to her big town and leave the cafe. So one day, when she hears the sounds, she goes outside and meets our male main character, Logan, who she thought was trying to kill her, but turns out he's just a local farmer in the area delivering her fresh produce for her cafe. And the two quickly pair up to try and figure out what is going on and who is making these noises, who's trying to get rid of Jeannie. This book, like I said, is giving Gilmore Girls in a way that I'm like, is this even legal? Because it has the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, which is kind of like Luke's Diner. We have a happy-go-lucky girl, grumpy sunshine, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's giving those vibes. They had town hall meetings, which Gilmore Girls has, and it was kind of like that silly vibe the whole time. I actually gave this one 3 stars, which was very shocking to me. You have to go into it knowing what you're getting into. It is a very Hallmarky vibe book, fall cozy vibes. Like, that's just kind of what you have to go into it with, and I think that's what helped me like it so much. Normally not a small town romance girly, because I think it's just very out of touch with how a small town really is. But this one did it well. I loved the found family aspect of it as well. All of the side characters were really fun, and I think that this is kind of like a interconnected standalone series, and so you can get more of the like side characters if you want to continue reading about them. But anyways, I did genuinely enjoy this book. It is very fast-paced. I will say the one thing that kept tripping me up in the beginning was that our narrator is a third person, like omniscient point of view kind of thing. And so it kept going back and forth between Jeannie's thoughts and feelings and Logan's thoughts and feelings, like within the same page. And so I kept getting confused on who was feeling the way they were feeling, but eventually once you like get really into it, you start to figure it out on your own. But that was one little quip that I had with it in the beginning. Overall, super fast paced, super cozy vibes. I read it very fast and would definitely recommend it. I think I'm gonna go ahead and pick up the other ones eventually, but for now, this one did what it needed to do. Next, I read Fall Into You by Carolyn Frank. I read / listened to this one, and this was my first ever like brother's best friend. In this book, we follow Liza, who is from like a very family-oriented family, and she has always had this crush on her brother's kind of like best friend / roommate from college. And the two actually meet again when this guy, his name's Matt, is invited by her brother to this family. I think it's Thanksgiving. It's some kind of family gathering, like meal type thing. And she is just quickly reminded of her crush for Matt. And Matt, when he sees her, is kind of like, whoa, like my best friend's sister is really hot. And so that is genuinely the premise of the book. I don't think I could explain it much better than that. The two obviously feel like they cannot date because the brother is very protective of his sister. Like I said, they're very family oriented. So they feel like he will be breaking like the bro code and stuff like that. I only gave this book 2.5 stars. I think I could honestly bump it down to a 2 stars. I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt and keep it at 2.5, but I genuinely have not thought about this book since I finished it. It just was not my favorite. Again, kind of insta-lovey, very toxic. We are all grown adults. We can date who we want. There is no such thing as a bro code or the sisterhood code or whatever. And so that part just came off very toxic to me. If my brother did that to me, I would be like, what the heck? So it was kind of unrealistic, but it was a quick read. It gave the fall vibes that it was supposed to give, but the whole like miscommunication between the brother, like the family and the best friends, like just sit down and say how you feel and let's move on. So just overall, not my favorite. Next, I read Heart of the Raven Prince by Tessania Odette. I hope I'm saying that right. Maybe it's Tessanja Odette. This is a series. It is called the Entangled with Fae series. This was actually book number 2. But I know Sarah Caroli read the second book first, and also Kendall just gave me this one in my recommended, so that's what I went with. Okay, my camera died, so if the angle changed a little bit or the lighting changed a smidge, no, it didn't. My camera is sick and tired of me yapping, so it died and I had to go charge it for a second. I was on Heart of the Raven Prince. I think I already mentioned it, but this is a Cinderella retelling and it does it in the best way possible. In this book, we follow our female main character, Ember, who is the Cinderella of our story. Ember is a half human, half fae who is kind of like a siren in a way. She has a very beautiful, like entrancing voice, and she is under like the guardianship slash power of her stepmother and her stepsisters. She is legally bound to them through like fae magic until she turns 19. So she basically cannot run away or the like magic will harm her. Anyways, her stepmother takes her to this kind of like celebration slash party of the ties the human and the fae have at the Lunar Court, which is Prince Franco's court, who is our male main character. This whole party is like a celebration, but also they all are wearing glamours, which just makes them look different than they actually are. And so at this party, Ember runs off to find a piano to sing, and a fat raven comes to listen because he is entranced by her song, and they get to talking, they get to kind of like flirting, and it turns out this raven is the prince. And he is just kind of taken aback that this girl can not only sing so well, but also is flirting with him for who he truly is and not just because he's a prince. Anyways, the whole time her stepmother is trying to come up with this plan to get her to marry this stranger. He's kind of like a church leader. I forgot what the church is called, but just think of him as kind of like a pastor, like this church leader. And he is trying to marry Ember to kind of complete his like savior complex. Anyways, obviously Ember doesn't want to marry him because A, he's a stranger, and B, he is kind of the reason why his father died. She is kind of like under power of her stepmother. She can't really leave. They are allowed to stay in the castle now that they are kind of like family because she's getting married to this man. So she tries to escape despite the like magic that she has on her until she turns 19, and she runs into another princess that's in the castle. This is pretty much Princess Ariel. I forgot her real name, so we're just gonna call her Princess Ariel. And Princess Ariel is at the castle because her father wants her to marry Prince Franco and like court him to kind of tie together their two courts, but she doesn't want to, and so she kind of makes this deal with Ember that if she pretends to be her, she can run away, and Ember can bide her time until the couple of weeks that she turns 19 and does not have to marry the strange man. So she gives her this glamour like the other people are wearing at the party in these glass slippers, and every time she puts them on, she's basically Ariel. So Prince Franco also has this like magic where he can read and feel other people's emotions. So pretty quickly he's like, you're not Ariel. And that is kind of like how the story goes. It's a long-winded explanation, so I'm sorry for that, but I really, really loved this story. I gave it 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I actually read this as part of a 24-hour readathon. It's not out because the footage got fucked up somehow. So I was surprised that I liked it as much as I did because I was exhausted reading it, but I genuinely really, really love this story. All the little odes to the real Cinderella was just so special, and the story was great. I loved Prince Franco. So I'll definitely keep reading the series, but I don't know if that'll be anytime soon. I know that the next book is Princess Ariel's like retelling, so we get to see this character that she runs into again. Genuinely, I haven't stopped thinking about this book since I put it down. I love it so, so much. Next, I listened to The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I don't know. I don't know how to say anyone's name, okay? Please help. Anyways, I don't know how I haven't gotten around to reading this book. It is literally like an OG book talk book, but if you don't know what it's basically about this woman. Her name is Alicia, and she is a painter. And one day they find her basically over her dead husband's body with like the weapon, and so she gets sent to this inpatient place where she can be treated for her psychosis. And that's where our male main character, Theo, comes in. He is a psychotherapist, and he specifically goes to this hospital for Alicia. He wants to help her and has been kind of like enamored with her case, and he thinks that he can really help her and they both can kind of benefit from the treatment. And then obviously, since it's a thriller, there's a bunch of twists and turns in this book. I feel like that's as far as I can go in explaining the book before I get into spoilers. This book, 2 stars. I enjoyed it, but also the twist didn't twist for me. I think there's so much hype around this book that I was expecting it to be absolutely freaking insane, and it just was not. I pretty much, like, I had a few guesses on who it could be, like on what could have happened, and one of them was right. And so I feel like a thriller, to me, I cannot rate a thriller higher than a 3 stars if I know what happens. You know what I mean? Like, because then you go through all of this like anticlimactic stuff just for you to already know what kind of happened. It kind of ruins the whole book for me. Of course, it was well written. I know that this author is highly acclaimed and makes great books. I just don't think this one was for me. Like I said, if I guess the thriller before the thrill happens, like, it's just not for me. I think a lot of that comes from the stigma around it and how long it's been on Book Talk and how long it's been recommended to me that like it fell flat. Okay, and lastly, I listened to Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood. This is her new book. I think it's only an audiobook right now. Maybe it'll only be an audiobook. It's a novella. In it, we follow Viola, who is a video game like designer slash developer at one firm. And then we also follow Jesse, who is the same thing, a video game developer, but for a different company. And the two companies are supposed to come together to create the 3rd installment of a very popular video game slash book series called Limerence. But these two firms have a big history of kind of contradicting each other and not liking each other because obviously they're competitors. So the two firms go onto like a cabin retreat to try and mend the bond together. And Viola is met with Jesse, who she's kind of known for a long time and who has always given her like the cold shoulder. He's kind of basically been like, ew, nothing could ever happen between us. And Viola's always been like, you're hot, I have a crush on you, but you're so mean to me. And so the two are kind of like forced to get along because they both love this video game series so much and the book series so much. It means a lot to them. And so throughout this very short novella, you're following the two kind of navigate what went wrong in their past to make them hate each other so much and navigate how to come together to make this video game the best that it can be. I gave this audiobook a 3 stars. I liked it. It was obviously fast-paced for a novella. I think it's one of the better novellas I've ever read. It was very well thought out and developed. I love a good enemies to lovers, so of course that was great as well. I also love video games like in my free time, so it was kind of cool to see them talk about like real life video games. Like they were talking about Red Dead 2 and like all these other things, and so that was kind of fun. All the side characters in it are super silly and you get more of them because they're all together. Of course it's short, and by the time you get to the end it gets pretty spicy. I was listening to this on the way to and from our like little Thanksgiving at my family's, and that was a big mistake because my boyfriend was in the car with me and it was so awkward by the time I got to the end. Of course he like started tuning in once I got to like the last couple of chapters when they start, you know, getting a little spicy, and it was genuinely like the worst experience of my life. Alrighty guys, that was the 6 books that I read in November. Although some of them weren't rated as high as I would like, I would say that November was pretty successful for reading because I feel like I read a lot more books than I'm used to in a month. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you're gonna add any of these books to your TBR now, or if you read any of these books and what you thought about them. Happy Bookmas, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye.